Yeah, good morning. You know, the world has changed so much over the past few days with the attempt on former President Donald Trump's life at that rally in Pennsylvania on Saturday. Now, for those who still get a newspaper, many people woke up on Sunday morning to their newspapers with this now iconic photo of a bloodied former President Trump pumping his fist at the crowd in Pennsylvania before Secret Service rushed him off the stage. But now the focus shifts to where we are right here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the site of the Republican National Convention. And security was already going to be at the forefront of a lot of people's minds before what happened on Saturday. You know, we're told that there's going to be as many as 4,000 law enforcement officers from outside the state of Wisconsin here for the convention, including some from North Dakota. And there's going to be a bevy of Secret Service agents as well in the area. We hope to speak with some law enforcement from the Peace Garden State, as well as some other local Milwaukee-based private security that's going to be working at the convention on how they plan on securing this event. The eyes of the political world are right here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin for the Republican National Convention. Now, this week, former President Trump is expected to formally accept the nomination for the Republican Party for president at the Pfizer Forum right across the way here, across the river from me. He'll accept the nomination from the party. It's been quite a few days for the former president. He survived an assassination attempt, as we know, over the weekend, is recovering from that. Now, we just found out this morning that the former president is expected to make his announcement for who his vice presidential selection will be today. He told that to Fox News earlier today that he plans to make that announcement today. Of course, we've been closely following that since our governor, Doug Burgum, is one of the top candidates for that. Others include Senators Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance. We don't know who it could be. Very tight-lipped as to who it's going to be, but the president says he's going to announce it today. Yeah, good evening, Mike. Well, you know, as we've been reporting today, North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum fell just short of being named the running mate for former President Donald Trump in this election. But nonetheless, the country has gotten the chance to get to know Doug Burgum over the course of the past year, going back to a year ago right here in this place when he stood on the stage in that first presidential debate. Now, earlier today, ND GOP Chairwoman Sandy Sanford and State Auditor Josh Gallion led the North Dakota delegates in casting their votes for Donald Trump for president. Gallion, who, if you remember, received an endorsement from Trump, spoke to the floor. Moments later, my colleague Justin Gick and I spoke with Sanford and Gallion about the Veep stakes and North Dakota's role in the national discussion.
Any of the picks were going to be fine for North Dakotans, but of course we would have loved to have a North Dakotan as a vice president.
I think it's great that North Dakota is part of the national discussion. This is a great honor. Even though Doug Burgum is not going to be the VP, I'm confident that he's going to play some kind of a major role in this administration. He's going to continue serving not just the state of North Dakota, but our nation.
Now, this is in all likelihood not the end that we're going to hear for our governor. He is going to address the convention later this week, and also he's likely going to receive some sort of position within the administration, perhaps as, say, energy secretary, for example, something he's talked a lot about throughout his campaign. We did reach out to his camp for comment, and we are awaiting a response and looking to try to get a conversation with him this week before we head back to North Dakota. Good evening, Mike. You know, I had a script for you earlier this evening for what I wanted this live shot to be at 10 o'clock, and then I had to scrap it and start all over. That's because just around the 9 o'clock hour at the convention here, Donald Trump himself entered the floor. And look, whether you love Donald Trump or you hate Donald Trump, you agree with his politics, you don't, I think we can all agree the man knows how to gain control of a room, because this place really lit up the moment that he entered the room. And I want to kind of bring our viewers into how that all went down right around the 9 o'clock hour. The former president appeared on the big screen, and of course everyone noticed right away that he had a large bandage on his right ear. That, of course, from after he was shot in the ear at that rally in Butler, Pennsylvania on Saturday, where an attendee was killed and 2 other people were hurt. The convention introduced musician Lee Greenwood, a big Trump supporter who sang his song God Bless America, God Bless the USA, as the president entered the floor, flanked by security. Mr. Trump then was escorted to a spot with his family and the vice presidential nominee, J.D. Vance, in the first show of unity for the ticket. Now, with that, we're going to look for Senator Vance to speak probably Wednesday night, and then, of course, the presumptive, well, he's not presumptive anymore, the presidential nominee Donald Trump would speak on the final night of the convention. As for Doug Burgum, who we found out earlier today is not going to be the nominee, it's far from over for him. He'll likely end up with a cabinet position of some sort. North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum fell just short of being named the running mate for former President Trump in this year's election. The former president selecting Ohio Senator J.D. Vance as his running mate. But for North Dakota Republicans at this convention, they say that the state has made it in the political discussion nationally.
Any of the picks, we're going to be fine for North Dakotans, but of course we would have loved to have a North Dakotan as a vice president.
I think it's great that North Dakota is part of the national discussion. This is a great honor. Even though Doug Burgum is not going to be the VP, I'm confident that he's going to play some kind of a major role in this administration. He's going to continue serving not just the state of North Dakota, but our nation.
Now, also on the first day, I had the chance to talk with one of Governor Doug Burgum's former competitors for the presidency, businessman Vivek Ramaswamy, at a gaggle in the hallway. I asked him about Doug Burgum and his thoughts on his campaign.
I love his expertise on certain issues where, from a business background, which I have partial to. I think we need more people with business backgrounds who show up in American politics. I also think that he is somebody who brings something complementary to the America First movement, right? He's a little different than a lot of the other politicians in the mold. So I hope he has an important role in the future of our country. I'm confident he will.
Now, the governor may very well still land a position within the Trump administration as a cabinet official or what have you. That is, if former President Trump is reelected to the high office, that remains to be seen. We are working on getting in touch with Doug Burgum's camp to get reaction from him, and we hope to have a conversation with him here at the convention before the week wraps up. Within the past hour, North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum held a gaggle with North Dakota news outlets, including my colleague Justin Gick and myself, and our other stations in North Dakota, right here, right outside of the Fox News main area. We asked him a series of questions about the vice presidential selection, just missing out on that. In terms of the selection of J.D. Vance for vice president, here's what Governor Burgum had to say.
President Trump has made an excellent selection. As a small town guy, I got to say, what's not to like about someone with an incredible personal story like J.D. Vance and small town background, and of course served our country in the military. And then his backyard is the 3 states that we've got to win: Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. So excellent choice, and they're going to be a great team.
Now, we also asked the governor other questions, including had he spoken with former President Trump since that shooting at the rally over the past weekend in Pennsylvania. He talked a little bit about that and the words that he and First Lady Catherine exchanged with him. Got a little bit emotional when he was talking about that as well. Our reporters also talked with him about his future ambitions, whether he thought he was going to get a position in the Trump administration if Donald Trump is reelected to office, as well as his future ambitions. Does he plan on running for office again? Now, the governor did say he is planning on addressing the convention tomorrow night. We plan on being here covering the governor's speech. Justin and I will be bringing you all things convention related throughout the week, including Governor Burgum's speech tomorrow. Yeah, good evening, Mike. Earlier this afternoon, we had the chance to speak with North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum a day after the vice presidential nomination was announced. The governor held a special, what we call in the industry, a gaggle with media that came specifically from North Dakota to Milwaukee to cover the convention this week. Of course, the first question that was asked was about his opinions on the selection for vice president. Goes without saying, it's a tough pill to swallow for the former for the governor, as he was close to being the nominee, but he was very supportive of Senator J.D. Vance and his selection. He referenced J.D. Vance's small-town values and said that it was a strong ticket, the Trump-Vance ticket in this election. Now, when given the chance, I also asked the governor about the attempt on former President Trump's life at that rally in Pennsylvania this past weekend, and if he had reached out to the former president as well, because he's developed a close relationship with former President Trump throughout the course of this campaign. He said he'd reached out to the former president, him and First Lady Catherine, and wished them well, and had also reached out to some of Trump's children as well. Here's a little bit more of what he had to say.
You watch your own father or grandfather take a bullet, and you're not sure during those minutes. I mean, when he stood up and pumped his fist, for the family members, a huge, incredible moment of relief, but for our nation, that iconic picture that's him that David Mills took with the flag behind his fist bump, I mean, could be the photo of the century, and it'll be in children's history books 100 years from now.
Now, we also talked with the governor about his future aspirations, if he'll have a role in the Trump administration if Trump is reelected, and if he plans on running for any elected office himself in the future. We'll have more of our conversation with the governor online and on our airwaves throughout the week. Governor Doug Burgum is also scheduled to speak on the stage behind me tomorrow at the convention, so we'll have coverage of the governor's speech. Good evening, Mike. Yeah, today we saw many prominent speakers take the floor to rally for Republicans. One of the most notable speeches we heard, though, was from Nikki Haley. Now, Nikki Haley was not originally invited to speak at this convention. Mr. Trump invited her on short notice to address the convention floor. Now, in her speech, Nikki Haley spent much of her address calling for party unity. She spoke directly to her supporters, many of which spurned Trump during the primary. Haley said it's time for Republicans to come together despite stark differences.
You don't have to agree with Trump 100% of the time to vote for him. I'm here tonight because we have a country to save. And a unified Republican Party is essential for saving her.
Now, one person who didn't take the stage today is Governor Doug Burgum. Now, he'll be taking the stage tomorrow night. Earlier today, though, my colleague Justin Gick and I had the chance to speak with Governor Burgum for the first time since learning that Senator J.D. Vance would be the vice presidential running mate. The governor recounted his conversation with Trump.
No commitments have made, but when I talked to President Trump yesterday after he made his decision, he called, and the first thing he said was, "Hello, Mr. Secretary." He's got a great sense of humor. I thought it was a great way to open that call.
Now, it of course remains to be seen as to whether Governor Burgum will actually get a position in the administration. It's all contingent, too, on if Donald Trump is reelected. Either way, we'll be hearing from Governor Burgum at 7 p.m. on the stage right behind me. We'll be right here for coverage. On Tuesday, we got the chance to speak with North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum for the first time since the announcement this week that former President Donald Trump would select Ohio Senator J.D. Vance to be his running mate for the ticket. Of course, Governor Burgum was one of the top contenders for that spot. That was the question we asked him off the top, his thoughts on the selection, and even though it goes without saying it's a bitter pill to swallow for him, he was very supportive of the selection. He referenced what he sees as Senator Vance's small-town values and said that the Trump-Vance ticket would be a strong one. He talked about his conversation with the former president when he found out that he would not be the pick. Here's what he said.
When I talked to President Trump yesterday after he made his decision, he called, and the first thing he said was, "Hello, Mr. Secretary." He's got a great sense of humor. I thought it was a great way to open that call. And he had, super kind words for Catherine, our First Lady of North Dakota, all the work that she's done, eliminating the stigma of the disease of addiction.
We also asked Governor Burgum about the attempt on former President Trump's life this past weekend at that rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. We talked with him about the conversations he'd had with Mr. Trump since then. He said that he had reached out to him and First Lady Catherine, and offered their well wishes, and he'd also contacted some of the other Trump relatives, his children as well, to show their support. Here's some of what he had to say. You developed a close relationship with the former president through this process. After Saturday, did you reach out to him and talk with him, and what was that conversation?
Well, when we did speak after that, the very first thing from Catherine and I was just thank God you're alive. Call it a miracle, as I've said, I think divine providence, but clearly it would have been such, we couldn't even comprehend what the change would have been without him. So that was our first thing, and of course having to get to know the Trump family, also had reached out to the kids in that family too.
Governor Doug Burgum is expected to address the convention floor on Wednesday. On the stage you see here right behind me, we plan on bringing you coverage of his address to the convention and what he has to say to the delegates and all of the media here and everybody else that is present. We'll bring you coverage of all things convention throughout the week. Yeah, good evening, Mike. You know, just about a year ago, Governor Doug Burgum was in this very arena in Milwaukee fighting for speaking time at the first Republican presidential primary debate. And on one leg, no less, because remember, he ruptured one of his Achilles tendons the night before. Well, tonight's a different story. It's a whole new ballgame for him. Tonight, he's going to have the command of the room. He's going to have the microphone all to himself for 15 to 20 minutes, give or take, as one of the first keynote speakers at the third night of the Republican National Convention. Now, we are expecting a speech that is heavy on energy policies and American energy independence. That was a major theme of his presidential campaign, and it goes along with the theme of tonight, which is Make America Strong Once Again. Yesterday, we had the chance to speak with Governor Burgum and asked him about what he's going to talk about. Take a listen.
It's about how to make America strong again, and I think people that know me, that's followed my campaign last year, supporting President Trump this year, it's going to be on three things, which is we've got going 180 degrees the wrong direction under Joe Biden on energy, and that affects our economy, and that affects our national security.
Now, Governor Doug Burgum is expected to take the stage right behind me sometime between 7 and 7:30. Also taking the stage tonight, the last speaker of the night, is the man who edged out Governor Burgum for the vice presidential selection, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance. He'll address the convention floor and formally accept the party's nomination for vice president. We'll bring you coverage of both Burgum and Vance's speeches later tonight. Good evening, Mike. Governor Doug Burgum returned to the Pfizer Forum tonight for the first time since that primary debate last August. Tonight, he was, for about 15 minutes, he had the mic all to himself, not campaigning for himself, but now campaigning for President Donald Trump. Now, the governor beckoned the crowd to answer repeatedly who would make America energy independent again, to which they said Donald Trump. Governor Burgum used his time on stage to talk about the role that rural America plays in the nation's energy industry. Here's a bit of what he had to say.
It's rural America that feeds the world, that fuels the world, and defends the world. Small towns with a huge impact, and rural America is Trump country.
Now, in the moments after the governor's speech, my colleague Justin Gick and I gathered a reaction from members of North Dakota's congressional delegation to the speech. Here's a bit of what Senator Kevin Cramer had to say.
I think tonight Doug Burgum demonstrated his policy chops, particularly as it relates to energy, and specifically how energy relates to national security and economic security. As always, he articulated it with great depth, but also in simple ways for people to understand.
Now, right after he wrapped up his speech, the governor joined President Trump in his booth where him and a lot of his supporters are sitting, as well as family members. Moments ago, J.D. Vance, the man who edged out Governor Burgum for the running mate selection, formally accepted the party's nomination for vice president. He spoke to the convention floor and talked about the administration's plans for energy independence, bringing back American jobs, and what the Republican Party sees as failures from the current administration. He was introduced by his wife, Usha, who talked about how the two of them forged a life together despite their very different backgrounds. Now, aside from that, there were some pretty powerful other moments tonight as well. We got to hear from members of Gold Star families of American service members who were killed during the American withdrawal from Afghanistan, who felt that the current administration had failed them. We also heard from a World War II veteran who was 98 years old as well. Now, Donald Trump will accept the party's nomination tomorrow. It's going to be a ruckus crowd, and we're going to be on scene to cover it. Just about a year after fighting for speaking time on one leg at the first Republican presidential primary debate last August in Milwaukee, Governor Burgum found himself in the very same spot. But this time he had command of the room and the microphone all to himself, where he was one of the early evening keynote speakers on the third night of the Republican National Convention. His speech focused a lot on energy headlines and American energy independence, one of the highlights of his presidential campaign when he was still running for president, of course. Here's a little bit of what Governor Burgum had to say.
It's rural America that feeds the world, that fuels the world, and defends the world. Small towns with a huge impact. And rural America is Trump country.
Now, the night ended with the man who just edged out Doug Burgum for the vice presidential selection, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance. Vance addressed the convention and formally accepted the party's nomination for vice president. Here's a bit of what Vance had to say.
Now, I pledge to every American, no matter your party, I will give you everything I have to serve you and to make this country a place where every dream you have for yourself, your family, and your country will be possible once again. And if this movement of ours is going to succeed, and if this country is going to thrive, our leaders have to remember that America is a nation and its citizens deserve leaders who put its interests first.
Well, this convention will wrap up Thursday night, but not before the man himself, Donald J. Trump, takes the stage behind me, addresses the convention floor, and formally accepts the Republican nomination for president, hoping to be reelected to the office, this time as the 47th president of the United States. It's going to be a ruckus crowd, and my colleague Justin Gick and I will be bringing you live coverage throughout the night of the president's speech to the convention. I'm standing here on Martin Luther King Jr. Drive in the heart of downtown Milwaukee. This really is an historic part of the city. Longtime Milwaukee residents will likely remember this as Old World 3rd Street in Milwaukee. Now, the street that was once known as Old World 3rd this week has been transformed into something of a new world. We got security, police officers, lots of it. If you look over here, you'll see this is the media entrance that Justin and myself have to enter every single day with Secret Service officers and what have you. All of our bags are checked. They go through everything. It goes through a metal detector. They check everything with a fine-tooth comb. This is one of a couple of media checkpoints that media have to pass through every day to get into the main zone where the arena, as you can see behind there, is where the event is taking place. Now, if you want to come back here, Justin and I, it goes without saying, have a lot of equipment to do our job here in the 21st century, to do live shots and what have you. I want to show a little bit here of this is the stuff that we have to take through every day. We got our live packs, tripods, we have backpacks with our laptops, of course we have our personal items, clothes, we have multiple camera sets, and we're even taking like dollies and carts here to carry some of this stuff around because we also have to walk from the area of the venue to where our car is parked. So we have a lot of work that we got to go through here, but I wanted to give our viewers kind of a window inside of what life is like this week for members of the news media from not only Wisconsin, but around the country and other parts of the world. Good evening, Mike. A couple hours from now, Donald Trump will be taking the stage behind me to address the convention floor. This week I had the chance to speak with NBC News correspondent Dasha Burns. Mike, you may remember we spoke with her at one of the Republican primary debates in Simi Valley. Now, Dasha Burns was actually covering that rally in Butler, Pennsylvania when the president was shot and Corey Comparatori was killed and 2 others were injured. I had the chance to talk with her about how the events unfolded and what went down, as well as the goings-on at the convention so far this week and what she expects from President Trump tonight. Here's a bit of our conversation. Walk me through what was going through your mind when that happened and how you handled the situation and continued on with your job.
I was actually just starting to walk down from the press riser. We'd finished filming a stand-up right around the time that the former president started speaking, and we were making our way down the stairs when suddenly we heard those sounds that you now have heard so many times in that video. And initially, I, like so many people there, assumed it was fireworks. As it kept going, and it felt in that moment like it was going on forever, and the former president stopped speaking, that's when I realized, okay, this isn't part of the show, and something could really be going on here. So we took cover right as the shots were ringing out, but then as we heard the crowd start to cheer, we said, okay, we need to figure out what is going on here. And so we got out from behind some stage equipment that we were sort of taking cover behind and got back up on the press riser and pretty much immediately started reporting in our special report for NBC News.
The selection of Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, how does that, in your mind, shape the landscape for this campaign moving forward?
He is certainly cementing the MAGA wing of the party as the predominant wing of the party going forward. He is an America First MAGA warrior. He's really connected with the base. Some of the other candidates that we had talked about, Florida Senator Marco Rubio, North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum. Burgum was largely seen as a more safe choice, someone who wouldn't outshine the former president. Florida Senator Rubio, someone who could potentially help win over Hispanic voters, suburban voters. But it's Vance who is very much a character of the Trump movement.
What are you looking for from former President Trump? What can we expect?
It'll be interesting to see, as he said publicly, that he is looking to change his speech to focus more on unity, what that's going to sound like, what that will look like substantively, and what the spirit of that message will be.
Now, we hope to share the full conversation that I had with Dasha on our YouTube page and social media pages. The focus now turns to tonight's speech from former President Trump and the juxtaposition going on here between the unity we're seeing at this convention with the Republicans and the chaos that's unfolding on the other side of the aisle with the Democrats, as we see this growing chorus of prominent Democrats that are calling on President Joe Biden to step down from the race and pass the torch to another candidate. So we're going to bring coverage of everything unfolding tonight. It's going to be a late night, Mike. We should put some coffee on tonight, I think.
Some individuals from Minot are part of the state delegation at the Republican National Convention. Scott Louser, who's a state lawmaker, is an alternate delegate, but has also served as a delegate at past conventions. Travis Zablotny is a delegate for the first time. Both talked with us about the experience.
I know there's a lot of people, it's their first time on the floor, and that's an exciting thing because you're participating in something that's bigger than yourself. And I'm happy for our delegates that got to do it for the first time. I know all of them were excited. You could see the excitement in their faces and their smiles on the camera.
I was extremely excited at Trump's choice. Glad to see that we had a younger person, somebody that was very sharp with the issues, and being able to be there, part of the delegation, was probably a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
The delegates we spoke with stayed the entire week. We hope to catch up with a few of them later tonight for the reaction to the president's speech.
In what is now one of the longest such speeches in history, Donald Trump formally accepted his party's nomination for president. And frankly, at least in the first part of this speech, we kind of saw a different Donald Trump. He was a little more mellowed and subdued. The former president recounting at times in graphic detail the moments leading up to when an assassin's bullet struck him in the ear, almost killing him. He said when he realized he was bleeding, he collapsed to the ground. Listen in.
I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack, and in one movement proceeded to drop to the ground. Bullets were continuing to fly as very brave Secret Service agents rushed to the stage.
Now, Donald Trump said to the crowd, frankly, I shouldn't be here. Now, to which the crowd responded by repeatedly chanting, "Yes, you are. Yes, you are." Now, the president said despite what happened, he remained resolute.
Despite such a heinous attack, we unite this evening more determined than ever. I am more determined than ever, and so are you. So is everybody on your side.
Now, as the president shifted in his topics that he was talking about, his tone shifted somewhat as well. He became much more energized when he was talking about things like America asserting its independence in the world, not being taken advantage of by other countries, and boosting the nation's economy. He did wrap up his speech as sort of a sandwich, though, by saying every day is a gift from God, adding that the movement was about everybody in attendance. Now, right after this live shot here, my colleague Justin Gick and I are going to be gathering some reaction to the speech from some of the North Dakota delegates who came all the way to Milwaukee for this convention. We plan on bringing you that coverage tomorrow.